All right, we're about to dive into one of the most incredible stories ever told, the story of Jonah. It's all about a prophet who gets a message from God that he absolutely despises, and it sends him on a wild journey that will really test his faith, and ours too. But before we get into the story, let's start with a question for you. Have you ever been asked to do something and your immediate reaction was just, no way, anything but that? Well, hold on to that feeling because that's exactly where Jonah is when our story begins. So our story kicks off with Jonah, a prophet in Israel. He gets a direct command from God, and this one message is going to set off a huge, dramatic chain of events. The instruction was crystal clear. Get up, go to the big city of Nineveh, and tell them to stop their wickedness. Now, for Jonah, this wasn't just some difficult assignment. No, this was deeply offensive. He was being told to go offer a chance at salvation to people he considered his absolute worst enemies. To really get why Jonah was so horrified, you gotta understand the backstory here. Nineveh wasn't just some random city. It was the capital of the Assyrian Empire. And the Assyrians were a major rival and oppressor of Jonah's people, the Israelites. They were known for being incredibly cruel. So, asking Jonah to go warn them, to maybe even save them, from his point of view, that was just an unthinkable betrayal. So what's a prophet to do when he's commanded to go help his nation's enemies? Well, in Jonah's case, he runs. Yup. Instead of obeying, Jonah does a complete 180. He heads down to the coast, finds a ship, pays his ticket, and sets sail for a place called Tarshish, thinking he can get as far away as possible from God, and this mission he just can't stand. And this map just captures the scale of his rebellion perfectly. Nineveh was northeast. Tarshish, which was probably in modern-day Spain, was at the very edge of the known world back then. He wasn't just ignoring the call. He was sprinting in the exact opposite direction, trying to put a whole ocean between him and God. But this brings up a huge question, right? Jonah's a prophet. He knows how powerful God is. So what was he thinking? Did he really believe he could just get away? Well, Jonah was about to get a serious first-hand lesson in something called divine omnipresence. It's the idea that God is everywhere, all at once. You know, trying to outrun God is like a fish trying to escape the ocean. It's just futile. So as Jonah's ship is sailing away toward Tarshish, God responds. And it's not with a quiet word, but with this huge demonstration of his power over all of creation. All of a sudden, this massive, violent storm just blows up out of nowhere, and it's threatening to rip the ship to pieces. The sailors figure out this isn't a normal storm, and they realize Jonah is the cause. So Jonah fesses up, tells them he's fleeing from his God, and to save their own lives, they reluctantly throw him into the sea. And you won't believe it. The second Jonah hits the water, the storm just stops, completely. And these sailors, remember they weren't Israelites, they were so blown away by this raw power that they actually offered a sacrifice to Jonah's God. But for Jonah, the ordeal was just getting started. He was about to enter a period of darkness that would last for 3 days and 3 nights. So here's the crazy part. He doesn't drown. Instead, a great fish sent by God swallows him whole. And there, in the belly of this creature, trapped in total darkness, Jonah hits rock bottom. And from that place of absolute crisis, he finally does what he should have done all along. He prays, and he turns back to God. So after Jonah repents, God shows his incredible mercy. He gives Jonah a second chance, and through him, he offers that same second chance to the entire city of Nineveh. The fish spits Jonah out onto dry land, and God says the same thing a second time. Go to Nineveh. And you better believe this time Jonah obeys. He travels to the great city and starts to preach the warning he was given. And what happens next is, well, it's just astonishing. The people of this so-called wicked city, people who didn't even know Jonah's God, they don't just listen, they believe him. The whole city, from the king on his throne all the way down to the lowest servant, immediately repents. And this right here, this is the crucial part of the whole story. God saw that their repentance was genuine. Their change of heart was real. And because of that sincere turn, God showed them immense compassion and held back the disaster he had planned. This incredible adventure is so much more than just a story about a man and a giant fish. It's a really profound story, and it's packed with timeless lessons about mercy, prejudice, and just how boundless God's compassion really is. So, what are the big takeaways here? First off, God's compassion isn't limited by our human boundaries or our rivalries. It's for everyone. Second, when someone truly repents, it can lead to extraordinary forgiveness. Third, it's a direct challenge to us, to our own biases, telling us to show love even to those we think of as outsiders. And finally, it's a powerful reminder that when we're in trouble, the answer is always to run towards God, never away. Okay, a really great way to lock this story in your memory is to think of it in three big scenes. First, the escape, Jonah's rebellion. Then, the crisis, his repentance inside the fish. And finally, the repentance, that shocking citywide transformation of Nineveh. If you can picture those three moments, you've got the whole epic journey. And all of this leaves us with one last, really challenging question to think about. See, the story of Jonah really pushes back against that us versus them way of thinking. It forces us to look beyond our own group, beyond our own prejudices. It leaves us asking, who are the Ninevites in our own lives? And can we find it in ourselves to show them that same kind of radical compassion?